Hello and welcome to this course on being a good mentee. My name is Richard Daniel Curtis and I am the CEO of the Mentoring School. It's a great pleasure to be with you on these videos, and I'm just going to talk to you about a passion of mine, which is mentoring and the impact that mentoring can have. Now, the reason that we do this course is that we've learned that in order to help you to get the most out of mentoring, it's really useful to give you some ideas about the sorts of things that you're going to expect during the process. Because actually, mentoring is a two-way didactic relationship. Actually, it's completely dependent on a good mix between the mentor and the mentee. So actually, you need to make sure that, first of all, for you as a mentee, you need to make sure that you're with the right mentor, because that definitely will affect the outcome of your mentoring. Now, it doesn't matter whether you're receiving mentoring in a workplace, in a university, in a school, out in the community. That doesn't matter. There are some underlying principles that we're going to talk about that will help you to make sure that you are getting the very best from your mentor. So in this session, we're going to be talking about what mentoring is and introducing you to the grand picture and the theories around what mentoring is. We talk a little bit about the difference between coaching and mentoring, and we'll also talk about the different types of mentoring that people use. In the next video, we'll talk about what a mentoring session looks like, and so the sorts of things that you could expect to happen during a mentoring session. In the following session, we'll talk about what a mentor expects from their mentee. So what are the expectations of you? What are the things that you need to be doing? And finally, we'll be tying that all together with the session all about what you, the mentee, should expect from your mentor. Now, mentees, generally speaking, are someone who are, I'm going to say, subordinate in some way to a mentor. Now, when I use the phrase subordinate, I don't necessarily mean, and I definitely don't mean manager and junior member of staff, direct line management. What I'm referring to there is very often when we talk about what a mentor is, we'll talk about, and I'll talk more about this later on in this video, but we'll talk about the fact that a mentor is experienced in an area. And so actually, the whole reason that a mentor is doing what they're doing in order to share their own experience. Now, the first activity that I'd like you to do is to pause this video, and I want you to think about, what does a mentor do? Spend a few minutes now, just in your workbooks, just writing down what you think a mentor does, and I'll talk to you again when you're ready. When it comes to thinking about what a mentor does, there are a few common things that we see crop up time and time again. It doesn't matter in terms of where you are, it doesn't matter in terms of your environment. Actually, when it comes to mentoring, we see the same sorts of things come along. So the first thing that very often is mentioned is about support. A mentor offers support. They offer advice. They might actually signpost or refer you to someone. Now, certainly, this is one of the biggest things that we found in terms of what mentors and mentees respect about the mentoring relationship. Actually, as that trust grows, trust is another one, and confidential. As that trust grows, then what often happens is a mentor will say, actually, I think you'd be really good at talking to this person. And so that very often we see a really important part of the mentoring relationship as it grows, as it develops, is their network, is that signposting, is that referral. We've got also very often people will talk about the fact that they are going to be non-judgmental. They listen. So one of the important things for many mentees is actually they've got someone who's going to respect them, is going to listen. And so, there's a number of different ways of doing this, but actually what you'll find is that many people who come on our courses and many of the mentees that we speak to, Actually, this is what they're looking for. They're looking for that support. They're looking for that guidance. They're looking for that impartial advice based on someone's experience in a particular area. Now, very quickly, I'm just going to differentiate the differences between mentors and coaches. When we think of a mentor is someone who's experienced in a particular area. Even if we're talking about a reverse mentor, so a reverse mentor is a young or a new entrant to an organization, and they are mentoring a senior executive or a senior manager in the organization. Now, in terms of that organization, they're going to be less experienced. However, what they're mentoring is more about, generally speaking, it tends to be the modern world or different ways of operating or new ways of thinking, which the younger person, the reverse mentor, actually is more skilled in than very often than the senior staff who have, for whatever reason, have continued in a particular way or a particular method of operation for many years. And so this is about invigorating and reviewing systems and things like that. So there's reverse mentors, but all mentors share the common theme that actually they have experience in that particular area and they are talking about and sharing that particular part of the journey. So the whole point is with mentoring is that actually I've walked a very similar journey to what you're going through and I'm going to support you through it. Whereas coaching, a coach will use questioning techniques in order to be able to support someone. They may not necessarily have experience in that area, but they'll use questioning techniques in order to explore the answers and in order to help someone come up with the solution themselves. So it's not necessarily based from an experience point of view. It may be that they're talking or they're working with someone in a field that they're maybe not familiar with, but they're working to release the answers from within that individual. Now, that's absolutely fine. The other thing that can happen is that mentors can use coaching. So mentors can use coaching questions and coaching techniques in order to be able to help a mentee, just the same as coaches can also use mentoring techniques in order to support the person that they're working with, their coachee, as it were. There is a lot of cross movement there, but it's important that you understand the basic theoretical differences between the two. Because actually, if a session is being led where it's all about questioning you and helping you to support the answer without someone that's sharing their experience, then 9 times out of 10 that will actually be coaching rather than mentoring. That brings us on to our next little topic. Let's talk about the different types of mentoring that you can experience, because there are 3 different types of mentoring very often used. The first one, which is often the most common, is technical mentoring. And this is where someone is teaching you a skill or how to do a job. So it's very much task orientated mentoring. So an example would be actually if we were working in the workplace, and let's say, let's use my stepfather as an example. So he many years ago was an apprentice carpenter. And so he worked with a carpenter to learn how to construct the wooden things, and actually he worked on yachts, so how to do the wooden lining of yachts and all of these wonderful things. So he experienced technical mentoring. However, if I need support in terms of what's happening in my life and actually it's affecting my job, or I'm just feeling very overwhelmed, and so actually it's more about me, it's about my whole person, this is where we start talking about pastoral mentoring. Pastoral mentoring is all about dealing with the whole person. And it's, an example would be actually if a relationship outside of work is affecting your work or your academic studies, then a pastoral mentor would be the sort of person that you could talk to about that, and they would offer guidance, they'd offer support, and they would help you to find a way forward. The third type is a mixture of the two. Very often what we see is we see a technical mentoring relationship begin, but then over time that then changes into a more blended relationship. And this is where we see that although it may be a technical relationship, or although it may be primarily a pastoral relationship, actually you see elements of the other one. So an example would be, going back to my stepfather, if actually he was working with this carpenter and he was learning all these skills, but then also at the same time he started to talk about some of the things that he was worried about, or about his relationship or about money and things like that. Actually, if he was talking about some of the holistic stuff, then what very often will happen, because the development of that relationship is you'll end up in a blended mentoring style. Now, that brings us to the end of this first video. It just gives you an overview of mentoring. There's obviously, I could go into a lot more detail, but I wanted to try and keep it as simple as I can just to give you an idea, a flavor of some of those differences. I look forward to seeing you in the next video when we're going to be talking about what to expect during mentoring sessions. All right, guys, I will see you very, very soon. Bye-bye.